Welcome to Priyanka Global Centers, Mumbai. Established in 2010, the center is one of 9 global centers by Priyanka University and serves as a research, education and knowledge hub promoting new and informed ways of understanding global issues. It works in a large range of areas including environment, urbanization and sustainability, education, knowledge and culture, health and medicine, economics, entrepreneurship and innovation. Today's program, City Stars Global Journeys, is a part of the Centre's ongoing Mumbai and City of Knowledge initiative. Joining us today are Mr. Aseem Chhabra and Centre's Director Dr. Ravina Aggarwal. I'll just give a brief introduction to the two and then we get started. Mr. Chhabra is a New York-based freelance writer, film journalist and author of critically acclaimed books, Shashi Kapoor, The Householder, The Star, and the recently published Priyanka Chopra, The Incredible Story of a Global Bollywood Star. He has written for leading publications in India and the US, including the New York Times, the Boston Globe in the US, the Hindu, Indian Express, and Scroll Here, and has also been a commentator on Indian popular culture on NPR, CNN, BBC, and others. Mr. Chhabra is also the festival director of the New York Indian Film Festival and the Silk Screen Asian American Film Festival in Pittsburgh. He has received his Masters of Science in Journalism from the Graduate School of Journalism, Columbia University, and his MBA from Boston University. Dr. Ravina Aggarwal is the director of our center. After receiving her doctoral degree from Indiana University, she joined the Department of Anthropology at Smith College, becoming a tenured professor, where her courses included topics on media and filmmaking. Following her work in academia as a social-cultural anthropologist, Dr. Aggarwal joined the philanthropic sector with the Ford Foundation in New Delhi, where her portfolio included extensive work on media, films, art and culture. So thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to the center and I hand the floor to Mr. Chhabra.
Hi guys. Thank you all for coming. How many of you are graduate school of university? Oh wow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. That's equally good. Yes. Yes, you paid for your children to go there. Yeah, I should wear this instead.
Yeah, it will be easier for you to use the takeout.
Okay, sure. So yeah, as I said earlier, I graduated from the journalism school actually 35 years ago. So you guys can figure out how old I am. And I lived in New York for most of the time since then. All the last couple of years I've been spending a lot of time in India. So we're going to talk about these 2 books that I have written. This came out in May of 2016, and this just came out on Priyanka Chopra. There is a sort of, first of all, both of these turned out to be unauthorized autobiographies. Unauthorized in the sense that when I started writing the book on Shashi Kapoor, the first person I actually interviewed was his daughter Sanjana in Delhi, and I asked her, how's your father doing? This is in 2015, and she said he's not well, he's got dementia. And I immediately pulled back, and of course I interviewed her, and later I interviewed Shashi's son Kunal also. But I did insist on, and I've also heard from other people that his memory wasn't in that good a shape. So I set out to write the book on my own, although kind of had a blessing of two of his children, so which was fine. But it was unauthorized. I wrote the book on Priyanka Chopra. Now Priyanka, I've interviewed a few times in the past, especially since she started her sort of career in the US, first in music and then in television films. And I've interviewed Anjula Acharya, who's her manager, who literally made Priyanka's career in the US, and I talk a lot about that in the book. I've known Anjula for a very long time. So about a year and a half plus ago, I had already started to work on this book. I interviewed people, some of the filmmakers who Priyanka had worked with. And I went through this whole negotiation process with her lawyers in New York to interview, before I could talk to Priyanka. And they had sort of requests and demands, and we went through the process of my editors agreed to it. As it turned out, Priyanka has signed a contract to do another book of her own, which is coming out next year. Penguin Random House is bringing it out. So her publishers did not allow her to talk to another writer. So then I was left in this situation like, okay, I'm working on this book, but it's going to be unauthorized again. And what ends up happening is when you're working on a book on celebrities, you can possibly, you can write about them. You have to be careful, you have to be respectful. I especially have to be very respectful of Shashi Kapoor because he was old and I was concerned about his legacy more than anything else. Priyanka's life is being lived in front of us. But still you have to be respectful, you have to be careful because when you're doing an unauthorized book, they can come and take you to court if they're not very happy with what you do. I wrote the two books for different reasons. When I started to work on the Shashi Kapoor book, it became very evident to me why I needed to write the book. I began to realize that most people, you guys are still slightly older, but the younger generation, people in their 20s or even younger, they had no idea who Shashi Kapoor was. Shashi stopped acting, his last films were in 1998. And he put on a lot of weight even before that, but his health wasn't good. You look at Amitabh Bachchan who continues to act even now, and he does all these commercials and everything else. In Shashi's case, that was the... So when I come to India, and I'm here very often, my cousins live in Noida, so I live next door to them, and I remember telling my niece and nephew, they were at that time 15 and 11 or something, that I'm writing a book on Shashi Kapoor. So their first reaction was, who is Shakti Kapoor? Because they know who Shraddha Kapoor is there for. I'm like, no, I don't think I'll ever write a Shakti Kapoor. Then I had to explain, I said, he's Rishi Kapoor's uncle, Chacha. They couldn't care less. When I said he's Ranbir Kapoor's grand uncle, they sort of registered in their mind, but they kind of walked away. And I realized that these guys have no clue who Shashi Kapoor is. At least people who are maybe 10 years older have seen Diwar or some other Shashi Kapoor's film with Amitabh Bachchan on television or something. So in writing the book and writing about Shashi's life through his films, I really wanted the audience to discover Shashi and his films especially. That became sort of my goal as such, and I write about a lot of his films. In fact, I'm going to show a few clips from some of Shashi Kapoor's films, Merchant Ivory, which some of you may have known. At least there's one person did. People see those clips earlier. I showed them in Bombay a few months ago. But it's his work that has really not been discovered in India and doesn't play that often on television anywhere else. And that became very important. In writing the book about Priyanka, I think it was a very different goal. I think Priyanka's story fascinated me. Not just the fact that she had become a star in the US just in the last few years, but her from a sort of a middle class family in a small town in Bareilly to becoming a Miss India at the age of 17, that itself is a very interesting story itself. And I write a lot about what it takes to become get these beauty pageants and the kind of training they get, the confidence building skills, and then to become a Miss World and then just launch a film career. And Priyanka was not a good actress when she started off. Her early film Andaz, etc. You see, and she herself has talked about that she didn't know much about acting. Her acting skills evolved as time went on. I mentioned in the book there was a remarkable Priyanka that not only she became a star in America, in India, but then she became a star for the second time in America, which practically nobody's been able to do, especially in India. It's hard enough to become a star in one country. So I thought that story of somebody who reaches a level of success that Priyanka had achieved here, and the risks that she took, because the last film of hers was released in March of 2016, Jai Ganga Jal. She's now shooting Shonali Bose's film, The Sky is Pink, which will probably be out next year. She's done a couple of films in the US, but she almost left her comfort zone, her safety net of Bollywood, and moved to America. And people don't realize the risk she took, even the music career which didn't take off. She walked into a very crowded field. Most people who become musicians in America, they start up in their teens, A lot of them are in their 17, 18. She didn't start until she was 30 or something like that. Now, that doesn't mean that, her career could have taken off, but it's a very hard to really break into that field. What worked for her was that she was able to land this very big television show for a major network. But that also, I write a lot about the fact that, ABC as a network has this diversity program. Basically, they want, they're obviously realizing that America is not just all white people. There are, of course, we all know the blacks, but the Latinos, the Chinese, the people from every ethnicity. America remains a country of immigrants. And as more and more immigrants are arriving, those immigrants wish to be seen on television and in media. And so it was a diversity program that got Priyanka the gig. Of course, they also realized she had this tremendous star quality. Basically, she was charming. She was very, very friendly and very attractive. And she had talent also. And that's how she got the show. Quantico did not do too well after the third season. It was cancelled. But what it did for Priyanka was that it has made her into not exactly a household name, but she is now a very recognized celebrity in America. One could say that 3 years ago when Quantico was launched in America in September of 2015. And I have some photographs I took of that time. I didn't know I was doing a book at that time. But I read that Priyanka Chopra had a show with ABC. But I remember going to a subway station in New York City, and I was absolutely shocked. There was this huge poster of Priyanka Chopra, a poster with Priyanka Chopra's face. Basically, she had this FBI badge on her lip, and she's got these, very sort of sexy lips or something. And it said Quantico, and it said ABC with the logo, and it said September 27th or something. That's all. They were selling the show based on a very attractive woman's face, but an unknown woman. You see, usually, and I mentioned that, usually that kind of advertising campaign is done for people like Julia Roberts and Tom Hanks, who are absolutely recognizable in America. Therefore, you can just put their face, and the audience will come and see that TV show or the film. But in this case, ABC took a big gamble on an unknown actress who basically just the face, and then of course, once people started watching the show, they got into it, and the show had a 1 year run, then they had a second year run, and the strategy that went along with it, because once you're on a network show, you are on every talk show in America, and we are very good at doing these talk shows. So that's also the thing was, the talk show, the host would also invite her because she talks very much, she's fun, she was, doing tequila shots with Ellen, and she'll be eating chicken wings with somebody else and playing Holi, and the audiences love it. It was like a win-win situation with everybody. She was in practically every month, at least one magazine cover. That immediately changes the perception. I mean, suddenly people say this woman is a star, and people did not 3 years ago. September 2015, nobody knew who she was except for bases like me living in New York. So that's a story I try and tell. I thought that was a very interesting story to tell. Of course, I also track her life and her work in India, her major Bollywood films. So what I'm going to do is, I don't have any clips of Priyanka's film because Priyanka's work you guys all know. I have 4 clips of Shashi Kapoor's film. So it's not very dark. Is it okay? Will we shut the lights? What do we do? Ravina, can we put the blinds down or we shut all the lights maybe? So I have 4 clips of Shashi Kapoor's films to give you a taste of the kind of work Shashi Kapoor started doing in the early 60s. Just to give you some background, because Shashi Kapoor was a very reluctant actor. He didn't want to be in films because he had already done theatre with his father's Prithvi Theatre Company. Plus he had worked with the Shakespeareana Company, which was turned out to be his father-in-law eventually because he married Jennifer, who was a part of the company. And he wanted to actually just practice theatre as much as possible, but theatre would not bring the kind of living that he needed, and he was married by then, had a child, very reluctantly got into film, very reluctantly he had this whole argument with Yash Chopra about wanting to, Yash Chopra wanted him to sing songs, or lip-sync some songs in Dharamputra, and at some stage Shashi Kapoor became convinced that that is what the Hindi film industry wanted, and it was a requirement if you want to become an actor in the Hindi film industry. But meanwhile, he continued to do work outside the Hindi film industry, some of the merchandising films that you'll see will give you a taste of that. Of course, you guys also know, I'm sure most of you, that Shashi produced some remarkable films, Junoon, Kalyog, Vijayata, Utsav, 36 Chaurangile. All those films lost money, by the way. He put his own heart and soul into it. And his greatest contribution to, well, the city of Mumbai, of course, all of India, is the Prithvi Theatre, basically. Built it in the name of his father, exactly where Priyanka Chopra used to have his office before that. And it's a permanent arts theatre institution, which something of that kind doesn't exist anywhere in India. So Shashi's contributions are really amazing, but let's watch the thing. So we'll see the clip from The Householder first of all. It's a black and white, that was a 1963 film, and it'll show you a very young Shashi Kapoor first of all, but it'll show you his comic timing. It's a scene where he and his Neela Naidu, who plays his wife, they go for a lunch, for a tea party. So, the scene starts off with this.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I have a very pleasant duty to perform. To invite you to a tea party. A tea party? Very good. Sunday at 4 o'clock in the evening. Oh yes, of course the ladies are invited too. I should certainly convey this good news to Mrs. Chhabra as speedily as possible. She will be delighted. He will use dinner fire. But now I think he will be shy to come. It will be very difficult for her to make conversation. Ladies are usually shy. An hour of relaxation, now and again, releases the muscles of the mind. No, not there. Here. An hour's entertainment in the midst of a busy schedule is like a refreshing bath on a hot day. Excellent image, sir. Excellent image. A refreshing bath on a hot day. A very fine image. And so we return to our laborers. Revived, refreshed, relaxed. You understand? Bring the tea. Oh yes, I think we're all ready now for the tasty dishes Mrs. Khanna has prepared for us. The whole morning I was in the kitchen. It's not good giving things to servants. What are you waiting for? Have them now. Here. No, easy. What else did I make everything for? I used only the best tea for all my preparations. You will just taste the difference. I am particularly happy today to welcome the ladies among us. Now our women stand side by side with us to aid in shouldering the burden of national development. We must all, men and women alike, contribute to this national defense. People is forced to be careful to cover their mouths when they cough. Go on, keep. We must not forget the cultural side too. Our 5,000-year-old tradition of sculpture, dance, and song. How pleasant it would be to hear one of our beautiful Indian songs from the lips of one of these fair ladies. Music. No, you sing. Come on. That is going to be shy. No, sorry. I have called today. No excuses. Come on. Now, what's there to be shy of?
you can see it, he's getting so awkward and nervous and something, but then he feels terrible about it, like really, without having spoken a word. So I don't know if you guys noticed, the man who was talking the most, who invites them, that is Ravina Aggarwal, who's a very well-known journalist who started a magazine called Seminar in Delhi. And just as a pure coincidence, not because of this film really, but Shashi's daughter Sanjana is married to Ravina Aggarwal's son. And the other man who was going on talking, this old guy who was talking a lot, that's Ravina Aggarwal, who's Sarojini Naidu's brother. So it has all these little bits of it. So this was the first film that James Ivey directed in Household. A lot of this is shot in, it was all shot in Delhi, in Daryaganj and in Mehrauli, the scene. The next film is a film that was made in 1965, which I think more people have heard about, called Shakespeare Wala. And it showed a very different face of Shashi Kapoor. First of all, he's flirting a lot in these scenes with Felicity Kendall, who was 17 years old and was his sister-in-law, Jennifer's sister. But you see a very different, a very sexy persona of Shashi Kapoor. So let's watch Shakespeare Wala.
The smell of roses is not what they supposes,
but more than life discloses, and more than men believe.
but more than mind discloses, and more than men believe.
That's the Felicity.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you are too uncomfortable here.
Oh, the story is lovely.
I think I just need to write. I'm sure you do it much better than this. Much nicer than I can offer you.
Sometimes you go to sleep on station platforms. When you're tired, you don't hear the station bell going every time the train comes in. When we don't have our bedroom, we just lie down on the stool, and cows and people and fire dogs swarm all over us. Don't you believe me? I like it here. Do you live here all the time?
My father's house is in Delhi. This is my uncle's house. I come here for shooting.
What do you shoot?
Wild boar. I've shot 4 tigers. My biggest one was 10.5 feet long. For 3 days I waited for him. He wouldn't come. And one morning, early at dawn, the sun risen, everything wet, and the birds terribly excited. And the monkey screaming. And suddenly, there he was in the clearing, looking straight into the sunlight, and I fired. Bang. Have you ever been on a shoot? Do you like acting?
Of course I like it. But I mean, I've never known anything else. Sometimes I get depressed though. When nobody comes, we play to an empty house.
Don't know where we're at now. That's all I remember.
A real actress, someone like my mother, she plays the role she's worth right up to him. I like it like that. When you're like that, it means you're the real thing.
I'd like to see you act. Have a thought.
Lovely.
Don't you ever get homesick for it?
Who, me? I'm Ravina, born in India. Born in the fifth Ireland. Such a usual sort of random chaps. We're hard to Delhi. We've had nothing but trouble with it ever since.
What do you expect from a museum piece like that?
Well, anyway, somehow it's got against the car to get by Wednesday. Do you know? We play there every year.
I'm a friend there.
We always stay at an boarding house called Glennywood.
My friend written, why don't you go for a visit? I think I'll go on Saturday. Definitely Saturday. You know, You don't look like an actress.
Of course I do.
With the Indian actresses, you don't always stand. But you look like a nice little girl.
Oh! How do you?
So that's Shakespeare Wala. The next clip is from a film called Bombay Talkie, which was made in 1970, and that was James Ivory and his producer Ismail Merchant's sort of the exploration of the Hindi film industry. Basically, it has a larger story also. So Jennifer, Shashi's wife in real life, plays the role of a British author who arrives in India and is trying to find a project, and she walks into a set where this very big dance number is going to be done, and what James Ivory basically wanted was to sort of show how Hindi films had very over the top sort of musical scenes, and in fact there were similar Hollywood musicals in those days. What you see in this is a giant typewriter set there built, and it's I don't know, anyone seen this comic? This scene is just absolutely great. Helen dancing on the keys. So let's watch it, and you see the rest of the crew around for the shoot itself.
Pleased to meet you. This is usually a famous international novelist. Nice to meet you again. Of course, everyone is talking about it.
अपने लिए बनाए किसके लिए पब्लिक की और डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर पब्लिक की पोजीशन सबक किया था और चेंजेस की जो आप कंसेप्शन है जो आप क्या करें वो बनाए मैं शाम टाइम में कमरा बुक कर लेता हूँ आई वांट टू इंट्रोड्यूस यू टू विक्रम बता देता हूँ उसमें से अपने जो सीन आपको पसंद नहीं आपको निकाल दिया
This is Vikram, our star, here. This is Lucia Lady.
They wanted to be Indian actors.
This is Dwarka, our director.
Are you actors? You must excuse me, you can't read. Have you ever heard of consenting adults? I saw it. Well, it was a book before it was a film. There are books as well as films. People write them, you know. Right?
You have a fantastic set.
We call it the fake machine.
What?
See, typewriter keys represent the keys of life. And we human beings dance on them. And then when we dance, as we press down the keys of the machine, the story that's written is the story of our fate.
It's very symbolic.
Thank you.
May we have a photograph over there? Please come.
Tiger?
Please ask the girl to move. Girl. Here. Hurry, please come. Thank you. May I help you?
about Hollywood.
Yes.
And now you're becoming a writer like a Bombay film.
Perhaps. The fancy singer.
बिल्कुल साहब आइए कैंसिल करें हाँ करिए आज से शुरू करवाइए अरे बोली क्या हमने अपने
So, because there was a story about the Hindi film industry in Bombay, Merchant Abbey got Shankar Jackson into the music, and that song you can hear the voices of Kishore Kumar singing, so it has a lot of musicality from the Hindi film industry. The last clip I'm going to show is from a film that was made in 1993, so 30 years after The Householder, we saw how young and handsome and slim Shashi Kapoor was. This is In Custody Muhafiz, which probably many of you have seen, was released here. That was the first film that Ismail Merchant actually directed, based on a novel by Anita Desai, where Shashi plays the role of an old Urdu poet who's got two wives, Shabana Azmi and Sushma Seth. They're always bickering, and it's basically a story about the decline of Urdu language. And Om Puri plays the role of a professor who has been assigned this task to do a research article on this poet, and it's sad and it's very comical also that how this poet basically is surrounded by these chamchas basically, and all they want is alcohol and they want biryani and things like that, and poor Om Puri is desperately trying to get the interview and with a tape recorder. So this is Muhafiz In Custody. As for that, this is one of Shashi Kapoor's probably his best, if not the best, one of his 2-3 best roles. He's a fantastic film, really.
मस्जिद के पिछवाड़े एक छावनी रहता है तो मेरी पसंद के मुताबिक बिरयानी बनाता है अंडा मछली सफरान बढ़िया तेरा बासमती चावल अच्छा पड़ोसी भी है मेरा अगर तुम मंगवाने का इंतजाम कर दो तो वो बिछाने हो वो इस जगह से वाकिफ है और मैं भी मंगवा चुका हूँ मुअज्जिन ने शबे वस्ल अज़ां पिछली रात एक बार बता दीजिए जी मुअज्जिन ने शबे वस्ल अज़ां पिछली रात आए हम वक्त को किस वक्त खुदा भी यहाँ आया बिरयानी के साथ बिस्किट लेकिन मुझे तो बिरयानी के साथ रोम पसंद देवन साहेब मेरे चाहने वालों के लिए बिरयानी और ड्रम
रिकॉर्डिंग रुकी पड़ी है मुझे ड्रम और बिरयानी के लिए पैसे चाहिए देखो कॉलेज ने जो रकम दी थी उसमें से आधी तो मैंने बड़ी बेगम को दे दी और फिर जैन साहब को भी तो टेप रिकॉर्डर के पैसे दिए देखो अगर तुमने पैसे नहीं भिजवाए तो मैं नून साहब को नहीं रोक पाऊंगा और सारी मेहनत बेकार जाएगी
ये परवाज कैसे कर सकती है? एक मुतालिब जान है। तैर आलम की तोड़कर जंजीर, इश्क के लुत्फ से करें परवाज, खत्म हो जाए नारा और फरियाद, हम फलक की तरफ उड़े आजाद, मेरे साथ अंदलीब खुश आवाज, नगमा शीरीन गुनगुनाओ तुम, तराना हंसी सुनाओ तुम, मुझको है अंदलीब खुश आवाज, नगमा शीरीन गुनगुनाओ तुम, एक तराना हंसी सुनाओ तुम, मुझको है अंदलीब खुश आवाज। Hail to thee, black spirit, bird thou never wert. आपने तो बंद करवा दिया था। इतनी जरूरी मेहनत लगा दी। परिंदे भी हमसे ज्यादा आजाद हैं। चलिए अब यही ख्याल था, यही हमारी नज़्म का भी तस्वर है। हमें कबूतर उड़ाने का बेहद शौक था। जाहिर है कि हम लोगों में से किसी को इस शाहाना खेल करीब नहीं। उन दिनों यहाँ का आसमान गमख्वार की तरह था। आजकल जैसे धुएं और मैल की गोदड़ी नहीं था। मालिंदे हरीर था और आफताब ऐसे चमकता था जैसे किसी आला जौहरी के हाथ का तराशा हुआ ज़मीन पर। उसकी तरफ हमारे लक्का कबूतर परवाज़ करते हैं। देखते देखते हमारी आंखें चकाचौंध हो जाती। उस जमाने में सिर्फ 2 रुपए जेब में होते तो मैं अपने आप को दौलत न समझता। 2 रुपए लेकर मैं चिड़िया बाजार पहुंचता था। अरे ड्रम कहाँ है? गला सूख रहा है। नगमा शीरीन गुनगुनाओ तुम।
So, that's in custody. You guys should all see it. It's such an amazing film. Ravina, should we have a conversation? You want to come closer there?
I'm good.
Okay.
So welcome, Aseem.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and flying from Delhi to be with us just when you're on your way to New York.
I'm sorry, I forgot to thank you all. Thank you for inviting me, really.
We're delighted to have you. Welcome everybody. Thanks Tulika for the introductions. That was so mesmerizing. I didn't want the clip to stop. It was just, it's been a while since we've watched them, and the archive that you created for Shashi Kapoor is quite marvelous. So now you've, between 2016 and 2018, Aseem, you've written 2 books on these 2 megastars who were part of the Indian film ministry, the Bombay film ministry, and went on to become part of the global Western industry as well. I'd like to have you reflect a little bit on the contrast between the times. We know that Shashi Kapoor, had a career that spanned, from the 60s to the 80s, were the highlights, let's say, and then we go to the 90s, and Priyanka Chopra followed much later. So let's turn to the spaces where they transitioned. New York, let's say the US, the UK, the US. What's changed, what's different between the 2 movements, these 2 journeys of these film stars? And there are several aspects of it. So, has something changed in Hollywood that's different, that Priyanka goes on to become the first of her kind? And here was Shashi Kapoor was also very pioneering. So, in their pioneering paths, what's different?
So, first of all, we're living in a very different time now. Priyanka is very much a product of, and a number of, I think Priyanka has a lot of talent also, but she's a product of today's generation and today's world where social media plays a very big role in terms of promoting stars. Priyanka knows how to use social media. She was one of the first Bollywood stars to use Twitter, for instance. She's very active on Instagram, and I think that's how Priyanka is actually, I'll address the question you talked about Hollywood also, but it is through the social media that Priyanka, despite the fact that she's really not been working in India for the last 2.5 years, she's kept herself very alive and very active as such. Shashi belonged to a very different time period. Some of these films were made in the 60s, some were in the 70s, and there was no DVD at that time, there was no VCR also. Some of these films, Householder didn't do very well, but Shakespeare actually was a big success. Went down to the Berlin Film Festival and actually had to run in New York, and of course many of these films ran in London for a very long time. In fact, Shakespeare, what you don't see here, Madhu Jaffrey has a major role, and Madhu Jaffrey won the Best Actress, the Silver Bear for the Best Actress in the Berlin Film Festival. And as a side note, Satyajit Ray took Charulata to Berlin the same year, and Satyajit Ray won the Best Directors Award at Berlin, and Madhu Jaffrey won the Best Actress, which was a big year for India in Berlin in those days. But what would happen is that these films would get released in theatres, some art house theatres in the US, etc. They would have small releases in India because of Ismail Merchant's efforts to keep showing them. But then they would die because there was no television at that time, in the 60s, 70s. There was some television, but really not much. And Shashi remained better known in India, especially because of his work in the Hindi film industry. He became known for the work that he did, all the films he did with Amitabh Bachchan, often playing a supporting role. People knew him for instance, the films he produced. A lot of people did see Junoon, and people know about Kalyug and all of those films. But every so often Shashi would get work outside India, and in England he did this amazing film called Sammy and Rosie Get Laid, which was scripted by Hanif Qureshi. Hanif Qureshi scripted 2 films which were directed by Stephen Frears. First was called My Beautiful Laundrette, and then Sammy and Rosie. Both look at South Asian Pakistani immigrants in England. And in fact, the British Film Institute now is, restoring Sammy and Rosie. That's a remarkable story where Shashi Kapoor almost plays a Zulfikar Ali Bhutto kind of a character who's come to England to stay with his son. But those films hardly traveled to India or to small film festival songs, and people will forget about that. In Priyanka's case, it's a very different world now. As I mentioned earlier about ABC having this diversity group where basically they want actors from other ethnicities from other parts of the country to act in American television, with the intent of obviously trying to attract a larger audience, because that also helps in advertising revenue and everything else. So there's a whole strategy behind that, and Priyanka benefited from that, and she was the first Indian who managed to get a big television show. Now there are many Indian American actors on television in the US. Kunal Nair is on this Big Bang Theory. Practically every sitcom has at least some Indian American. Aziz Ansari started off also from television as such. But what Priyanka managed to do was to get a leading role. It was a main role on a big television show, which was the first for an Indian or an Indian American as such. There are other actors of Indian origin. Irfan Khan is a very good example. Poor man is not well right now, but he has been able to straddle between the Hindi film industry, and he's done some very, very big Hollywood films. Jurassic Park, he did Inferno, he did Spider-Man. So he's been able to play both games. But Priyanka did something very unique, and television I think is a very interesting way, because when you were acting in television in America, you have to live in America then. Because this 22 weeks a season goes on, that's practically through the year, it spreads and all. And so Priyanka actually moved to America. Somebody like Aishwarya Rai, who initially earlier tried to break into Hollywood, She got a couple of films and they didn't do very well. And then Aishwarya gave up and she got married and her perspective about life and goals in life changed and she became a mother and she's still an actress of course. But Priyanka went and settled down in America. That's a first of kind. So times have changed.
Yeah, so you've outlined, quite a few. You've looked at her marketing strategy, which was, a choice, with technology that allows, her to have a social media presence. There are other distribution organizations, platforms that allow stars to circulate in this kind of way. That was more difficult in the times when Shashi Kapoor was doing his journeys. You've also talked a little bit in your analysis. You've outlined this issue of the diversity aspect of it. So here's art house cinema that has room for diversity and diverse voices and diverse ethnicities and races. But here's mainstream, television, which is not only the progressive, liberal ones who read subtitles, but it's the heart of America. You've got to be on high ratings, which means you have to cross over to middle America, which is not necessarily going to support, it's not necessarily looking. So has the US changed in its openness with her becoming a mainstream icon now? Has the US changed?
So yes, in a large way. Just the fact that they were able to, when I talked earlier also, I knew that Priyanka was acting in this American television show, but I didn't realize that the whole show would be sold on basically her face and the fact that, all you could see was a very attractive looking brown-skinned woman basically. And that's how the show was being sold and people must have gotten curious about who is this person. This is not Julia Roberts, but who is this person? So America has changed to a large extent, but what is very interesting is that Quantico, and I don't know how many of you saw the whole, because I stopped watching Quantico after a while. I was watching it more for the sake of the book and I got an idea and I wasn't exactly a huge fan. While Priyanka is supposed to be Indian American in the show, she's given the name of Alex Parrish. There's a backstory about the fact that her mother is of Indian origin, father was of American origin, and there was domestic violence and a bad marriage. And for a little while, Priyanka's character has lived in India also. But the show did not go beyond that as such. There are a couple of episodes where you see a little bit of a hint of what Priyanka's ethnic background is. In fact, the opening episode itself, you see there's been an explosion in Grand Central Station and the camera pans on Priyanka and then you see that I think she had like an Om symbol or something on her bangle, or like a few episodes later, again the camera is sort of moving around in the room and she has a statue of Shiva in the background. That was about all. And in fact, I read an interview where Priyanka talked about, there was a lot of talk in terms of like what name should we give her. And they thought they should give her a name like Anjali or Aarti to make her totally Indian. And then they decided no, they'll call her Alex. So what's interesting is that while ABC did take the risk of putting up a completely unknown foreign actress as the face of the show, they still did not push her ethnicity to a large extent. Now ABC is, again, it's a network television where the change is really happening in America is on cable television. And streaming services, now we're seeing, we just saw Sacred Games, it was released in 190 countries wherever Netflix is available. Same as the show that became available today, Google. 2 years ago, HBO did a wonderful show. It's called The Night Of. I'm sure you've seen it. You guys have to see it if you haven't seen it. It's a story about Pakistani cab driver. Liz Ahmed plays a role. So they're the Indian Pakistani actor basically, and he gets entangled in a sort of murder drug sort of story. It was basically about South Asian cab drivers living in New York City. The cable television is taking more risks than network is as such. But America's changing.
Okay. So I'll just reverse the question then. Do you think, what's different in Bombay now? What's different in Mumbai and the ministry? Do you think that, diversity, the issue, I'm sticking to the issue of diversity. Do you find spaces for diversity in Indian cinema?
Well, I would say diversity in the sense that there are more women-centric stories, for instance, being written. That I was talking about it with somebody industry itself. But I mean, so we had major female women actresses in the 60s, 70s. There was Nargis, there was Nuta, there was Meena Kumari, and they had some major work. But we are now seeing films which are not all, but we are seeing more and more films, kind of what the Vidya Balan, for instance, has done, which are completely focused on the woman character. And the film opens and does well, because earlier it was always like, who's the main character, and that's what opened the film. But if you see a film like Kahani progresses because it's actually the woman who her narrative sort of navigates the story. Some of the work that Kangana has done, for instance, also, whether it's Tanu Manu, or Queen. So I think in that term, the Hindi film industry, I can only talk about Hindi film industry, that's the one I know the best really, is changing, because also you have younger script writers who are coming in, or women are writing scripts also. So, so that kind of diversity is happening. I mean, there are other issues every so often, Bollywood touches on LGBT stories, etc., but it's still very, very, very shy and very cagey there. I mean, we have a censor system and everything else here, so you cannot
I was thinking about international representation in the industry, right? So you do have a lot of artists who are coming, who are dancers. So you have the top, I wouldn't say top, but almost a part of a chorus, or part of, you have a lot of people from Eastern Europe, who are finding work in the Bollywood industry. So what's really interesting, and Priyanka, in your book also you mentioned that she starts off by endorsing this Fair and Lovely cream, but then she decides not to do it, right? And
she regrets about the fact she did it.
She regrets about it. But if you look at, say, Frida Pinto or Nandita Das, who was in Fire, or Priyanka Chopra, I mean, in a way, so here's the US, and here's a space for diversity. You can have an Aishwarya Rai, and you can have, Frida Pinto. All these three actors have spoken about not wanting to play to a fair-skinned stereotype, and some of the challenges of it, and feeling discriminated. Priyanka, of course, talks about the racism she faced in brown in the US.
During her childhood,
but here
our parents, our family, everybody, Priyanka was dark skin as compared to the rest of the Punjabi family, and they would put her down all the time. Bichari ka kya hoga? Jagdi shaadi kaun karega? That's what she grew up hearing. It's a very common thing that people in Indian families talk about. I'm a Punjabi, so I can play in Punjabi, but other Indians also talk like that. But and that's what motivated her to at one point endorse Fair and Lovely, and then she realized. She was very young at that time. I mean, people mature and they overcome those. Yeah.
But it is interesting that you do have, artists or actors who are, dark-skinned, or dusky skin, as she calls herself, and they're finding a space in cinema as representatives of India, or Indian, or they're finding a space as Indian actors, and. If you look at, so the diversity in that sense of different body types, of also looking at international body types that are not just white, would be interesting to see how our film industry accepts, or, so I think for me what was interesting about your books is, as we see these global journeys and these challenges and struggles, and then you think of where we are back home, in terms of a globalizing film industry, which is getting distribution globally through Netflix. So how will our diversity change? And I think that's a question that was perhaps not answered in such a short duration, but I think it's certainly a challenge for us to think about as we go.
Even in fact, Priyanka's journey itself, and I addressed that. When she went for the Miss India contest, which was held in January 2000 in Pune. So I spoke to Pradeep Bua, who ran the Old Times of India Femina group, and he's the one who launched the page 3 edition of Times of India and the whole culture. He said some of the judges he was talking to, because they used to be able to talk to judges and sort of influence judges. A couple of judges whispered to him that she's very dark skinned, and they were concerned that because she's so dark skinned, she may not be able to do very well in the international pageant. And Pradeep Bua said, what are you talking about? You have representatives from South Africa and other African countries and all. So what is this, the dark skin about? The first lead role that she got in Andaz, I spoke to Sunil Darshan, even he said I was recommended, and her manager kept saying come and meet her, and I met her, and I thought, my God, she's got dark skin. I mean, people think about that even now. This was about 15 years ago, but it's horrible, and Priyanka was able to overcome that. You start to then show what else is there. And her dark skin makes her look gorgeous in any case, but and then she's got so many other qualities also. In fact, she acts very well.
And you also brought up the issue of these women-centric films getting more, play now and getting, becoming viable almost as films. Here's, and from your book you talked about this interesting, her openness to doing more sexually explicit scenes that were not perhaps so possible for her back here. So this is very interesting when you think about where here she's kind of fought, as you point out, to have really meaty roles. But then she is willing in some ways to play, the exotic person. And so these are some of the compromises that she's made, or is it a liberation to be able to be explicit?
It's both the things. Quite frankly, when the song Exotic, for instance, was released in the West, and her music really did not do too well. In fact, more people in India were watching it because she's got more fans here at that time. And a lot of the journalists were very critical about the whole thing, that she was selling this very stereotypical sort of an image to the West. And I interviewed her at that time, and I said, people are very upset about the fact that, that you're doing this. So what's wrong with it, And I'm using Hindi word in the song, so what's wrong? And then finally she said, but I like to be called exotic. And I'm like, what am I going to tell this woman that, But that's her call for it. What is interesting with Priyanka was, when Aishwarya Rai, unfortunately Aishwarya Rai also got a couple of the films that she acted in, they all did not do well at the box office. She was in Gurinder Chatta's Pride and Prejudice, and she was in The Last Legion and Pink Panther, which on paper looked like a major project. But those films did not do well, and so Aishwarya couldn't do well. Didn't last too long in the film industry. But every time Aishwarya would go on a talk show in America, they were also, my God, you're very beautiful, very beautiful. She would giggle and laugh and all. And they would ask her, so you're going to act in Hollywood films? Are you going to kiss? And she said, well, we'll cross that bridge when we have to. Are you going to get, sometimes Hollywood films require you to take your clothes off. We'll see that when it happens. She kept saying it again and again, which was almost like an indication to Hollywood film industry. This woman is not. I don't know if you remember, there was a talk about Aishwarya once becoming a James Bond girl. She was the last option for James Bond, but she would never have worn those revealing clothes. If you watch the first 5 minutes of Quantico, how many of you have seen Quantico? You see first 5 minutes of Quantico, and Priyanka's in the car having sex with her male co-star. Nothing is good and bad. Yeah, but the point is Priyanka knows, and she knew at that point, that is what this industry requires. I'm not saying nudity is all that Hollywood requires, but that kissing or sex scenes becomes sometimes a vital part of what you're doing. So you don't shy away from that. And that has helped her. I mean, so obviously 90% of her work is not about taking off clothes or kissing or somebody, thing like that. But she's willing to do whatever the script or the industry requires.
And that's kind of true of Shashi Kapoor as well, right? Because a lot of the films like Siddharth or all the kissing that was required at the time, that wasn't happening in the Indian film industry, but it was but he was able to do that. Right.
It's very funny. I write about one of the incidents that Shashi Kapoor talks about. I was not able to interview him, but there were a lot of interviews of his that I watched. So Shakespeare, one of the scenes we watched. So Felicity was 17-year-old. On top of that, she was so young, but she was also Shashi's sister-in-law and basically a kid. And there are some kissing scenes between Felicity and Shashi. And Shashi talked about that was the first time he did kissing scenes, but it was very awkward for him to kiss this young girl who happens to be his wife's sister and also a kid kind of a thing. And Simi Grewal told me this other story about, I interviewed Simi Grewal. In Siddharth, the role that Simi Grewal plays, the courtesan, she's the one who shows Siddharth's character the ways of sex and Kama Sutra and everything else. But Simi says she was very shy of how to kiss. And Shashi taught her how to kiss on screen. How you will show your face so that your lips sort of work very well, your cheeks are fine. There's a whole technique about how to kiss on screen. It's not something that just organically happens. And so Simi told me that, Shashi who taught her how to do it. But yes, they knew that that's what the film required. And Simi, in fact, landed in major controversy because she actually, partially exposed herself also. But the film required that also. Some gorgeous photographs of hers. But yes, they did it because the story required it.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing Netflix and the idea of the censor board is going to obviously have to transform a lot if you're looking at digital platforms as well. Looking at the diaspora, the US diaspora and its support, as you mentioned, how moving it was for them to see Priyanka as somebody from their heritage being plastered everywhere. So I think from the time of James Ivory, Merchant Ivory doing films which starred Shashi Kapoor till today, the diaspora has vastly grown and is now a middle-class diaspora, upper-class diaspora that has purchasing power and that is an influencing diaspora. So would you say the diaspora is a big reason also for Priyanka's success and acceptance?
Well, yes, but not to that large an extent, because Indian Americans, and if you add Pakistanis and Bangladeshi Nepalis, the next census is going to be in 2020. They have census every 10 years in America, I think in India. The last census, there were about 3 to 5 million is the number of all South Asians combined together. That's not as huge a number as Latinos or Black people. But so happened that, yes, Indian Americans are among the richest, and that is something that the networks and the advertisers tend to understand. Every so often you'll see a McDonald's ad, for instance, and there'll be an Indian actor in that. There's a reason why they're doing it, because they know that Indians will see that and connect to it much more. Just as this started happening in America in the 80s, with starting with Bill Cosby's show, for instance. I mean, poor man is, not poor man, he's completely discredited now. But the Cosby Show was one of the first shows where African Americans were shown to be educated, well-to-do. They were professors, they were doctors, the children were also very ambitious, and that changed a lot of perception of what African Americans were about. I mean, for the American audiences as such, first of all. And that show became such a huge hit that there were so many other shows with African American actors also. And as I said earlier, now practically every sitcom has at least one Indian actor in it. Many of them have. That is showing that times are changing. Advertisers and networks are realizing that there is people other than just white people in America watching TV.
Yeah. What was also, just getting off this topic, but another thing that was interesting in both the books and that you picked up, and it was surprising to be reminded of it, was both Shashi Kapoor and Priyanka felt very committed to the industry in which they had had opportunities and to give back to it, right? So here was Shashi Kapoor doing these, had a production house where he wanted to support, filmmakers, and he supported Aparna Sen and making sometimes very financially unwise decisions, but nonetheless, the intent.
Artistically, they were very wise decisions.
Yeah, they were to support a type of cinema that he believed in and to support other artists doing that cinema. And now you see her production, it's Purple Pebble, through which she's decided to support regional cinema, right? And think about, and I really found that interesting when you pointed out that her reasons for doing that were that she thought, the Bollywood had taken a lot from regions and had shot in many locations and had picked up stories there. So language was important, and that to show films in languages of these locations was a way of giving back.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, look at a film like Dabang, which was a huge hit, and if you look at the language, etc., it's very rooted in sort of UP or Bihar sort of thing. So why can't those kind of films be? So Priyanka's mother, who comes from actually Jamshedpur, the first film they produced was a Bhojpuri film, which did very, very well. The second film they produced was a Marathi film. Now, the Marathi cinema has been doing very well, but Ventilator, the film they produced, went on to win a couple of national awards, 3 national awards. But the director of Ventilator, Rajesh Makusra, when I talked to him, he had earlier worked with Priyanka Chopra, and he said, I asked him, I said, why did you go to Vidhu Chopra? He said, Vidhu Chopra only wants to make Hindi films. Then he realized the kind of film he was trying to make with the kind of budget he was looking for. He decided to go to Priyanka's production house because he heard that they were, funding, financing, regional language films. We were just talking earlier about the Priyanka's, my friends and I were talking. She's just produced Ravina Aggarwal, who's a very well-known Assamese filmmaker. They made a Sikkimese film in Sikkim. There's not too many films that have been made in Sikkim. So they're doing, some very interesting work, really. I mean, they're still learning. Many of the films, some of the films haven't done very well financially or haven't had theatrical release, but they're still learning.
Yeah, it's very interesting because if you think of language, like a lot of times when people spoke about Shashi Kapoor, his acceptability partly was because he spoke English well, right? That he trained fast and then he spoke it very well. And here's Priyanka Chopra, where she's quite, in some ways, sounding effortless, although you do talk about the training that went into
her accent,
she got that accent, then she had to de-accentize herself from the American accent, and then she goes back and she has to reintroduce herself to the American accent, and not that there is one, but given that the series is also based in New York, so she gets back into regaining an accent, and then also all the ridicule face. So it's really interesting, her support for regional cinema. So I mean, at some point, I think it's really easy to put people in boxes, right? I mean, who should play a particular actor? And I think that's a question as we struggle with identity and ethnicity, and people not being able to play themselves, like people from the Northeast. We hardly see people from the Northeast as actors. Yet should she not have played Mary Kom? And I mean, I know Mary Kom thinks Priyanka Chopra should have played Mary Kom. So it's really interesting to see that's the complexity.
I talk about that. In fact, when I interviewed the director of Mary Kom, Kumar, he remembered that I had written a couple of columns. I was very critical of it. I actually did a piece for Quartz about, they were like I picked up 4 or 5 actresses from Northeast, including Gitanji Thapa, was a national award-winning actress from Sikkim, that why couldn't they play the role of Mary Kom? But, so I mean, when I was writing the article, of course, you can attack the Bollywood film industry, but there is another part of the story which, as Aseem Chhabra said, he said that, nobody would come to see the film. People came to see the film because only Priyanka Chopra was acting in it. I said, but Mary Kom was a very well-known national hero. He says, किसी को कुछ नहीं पता है. इंडिया में क्रिकेट के अलावा किसी को कुछ नहीं पता है. Nobody would have gone to see a film about a boxer from Manipur. Although she had won like every major sporting event in the world, she won medals, and yet people would have not gone unless they were able to cast Priyanka Chopra. So you say like somehow filmmaking is also a business decision. It's also business. So
it's interesting that she would recognize some of the inequities of that, and then go on to
at least support the regional films.
Northeastern films. So that was quite interesting to read about in your book. And I thought, it's not perfect. It's not a zero-sum game, but you do what you can do as to contribute. And I thought that was actually quite interesting, reflecting on that from your book. So. If you haven't had a look at Aseem's books, please do. They're extremely readable. You can read them, very quickly. And then, the Shashi Kapoor book is an amazing archive of a person who played multiple roles.
There were great photographs.
He does have lovely photographs. And the Priyanka Chopra one, of course, is contemporary. It's very easy to read, and it does throw up moments of reflection, and force us to think about her journey in a very interesting way, even though she might be, someone who's almost overexposed in our lives. But these kinds of issues around, body type, sexuality, contributing, giving back, I think they were very, you kind of just followed her biography, but you kept those alive, and I think I love those parts about them. I also really enjoyed understanding the time in the US in which she was living in, because you know New York so well, having yourself.
I went to a school.
I
took the subway, it was the F train, it was like such a long journey I had to go. It's in New York City, it's in Queens, and then I had to take a bus for 10 minutes, just because I wanted to go to the school to feel what the neighborhood was like. It's a very working class neighborhood basically. It's, mostly immigrants. So she grew up in, she was living with her aunt, first in Iowa, then in New York, and then in Massachusetts. And now, of course, Priyanka has been living in this very fancy Manhattan apartment, Tribeca. So I wanted to experience that. So yeah, I thought I should do that if I'm in New York.
Yeah, but your own journey as a film critic, as a writer, has taken you from Delhi to New York, back to Delhi. So you have yourself, you transcend boundaries and continents in your own writing. You write about. So tell me. Tell me a little bit about it, and I'm going to be selfish in this and say, would you start reflecting about your time as a student of journalism at Columbia?
So I went to the US in 1981. I've lived, this is actually, in fact, it's end of August, so I probably went around this week or the week of, I don't remember when I landed in the US, and technically it's been 37 years, although for the last 2.5 years, 2 years I've been mostly more in Delhi than in US. I mean, I went as a student, I didn't know, who knows where life is going to take you or something. I didn't go with the intent of settling down, becoming an immigrant, and eventually becoming an American citizen. All of those things evolve over a period of time, and I got married and had a kid, you get your first job. And but yeah, I mean, Columbia Journalism School was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. I had done freelance writing in Delhi before I left. I was doing some work for Doordarshan. There was only Doordarshan and All India Radio, so I had done some programs there. But I started with Hindustan Times, there used to be a paper called The Patriot, which was a very pro-CPI paper. So I would do film stories for them. But I learned a lot that 1 year I spent at Columbia Journalism School, really. This was before the internet, before computers. So I don't know how we used to do research. I have no idea now. Now I just pick up my phone and I have my IMDb app, and I know I know every reader or every actor. I don't know how we used to write at that time, but yeah, we used to do those kind of stories. And I was telling you about this major story that I wrote when I was in journalism school.
Yeah, tell us more. That's so interesting. I know you're going to talk about it in October, but maybe.
So I'll tell you briefly. In the Columbia Journalism School in the second semester, there was a course we had to do. It was called Columbia News Services. Basically, they would train you to do original stories, like if you're working for a news service like Reuters or PTI, and then the school would not sell, but they would send them out to major newspapers, and some of the major newspapers would pick them. So as students, we wouldn't get paid, but you get a byline which you can use in your resume to apply for a job. I did a story. They were interviewing the Satyajit Ray came to India Today. February 1983 issue of India Today. All the details are there in my head. Where there was a cover story about Satyajit Ray, and Satyajit Ray was at that time making Hare Rahe, and he was asked a question about a script he written called The Alien. There was a script that Satyajit Ray wrote in the mid 1960s about an alien spaceship that lands in a Bengal, in a village in Bengal, and a little boy, a Bengali villager boy in Bengal, befriends this alien basically. And the alien had all these powers to make the rice paddy bloom and to heal people and everything else. And that was the mid-60s, and Satyajit Ray shared a script with Arthur C. Clarke, who knew Satyajit Ray's work. And Arthur C. Clarke even then used to live he moved to Sri Lanka basically. And he sent Satyajit Ray to Hollywood with a producer, and Ray went to several studios, and he had photocopies of his script which he left in a lot of studios. And there were a lot of conversations. In fact, there's a book out, HarperCollins has done a book about this whole journey. There was talk about either Marlon Brando or Steve McQueen or Peter Sellers to play. There's an American main character in the story, and Ray was set to make the film, except for then the financing fell through, and then he ended up doing some other projects. The Alien was never made. You fast forward to September 1982, and Steven Spielberg releases a film called E.T., which becomes a humongous hit, which everybody loves, of course, and even now when I watch it, I start to cry. And people began to notice. Satyajit Ray gets a call from Arthur C. Clarke, who's gone home to London, and he's seen the film there. And Arthur C. Clarke says, remember the script you wrote? There's a lot of similarities between your script and what Spielberg has done with E.T. And Ray is sitting in Calcutta making Hare Rahe, and of course E.T. hasn't opened up there. This is way before you could download illegal films or whatever. He had no idea. In that interview that he did with India Today magazine, he's asked what about the Alien script, and Ray said, well, you know, I've heard that Spielberg has made E.T. and before that he made Close and Not the Third Kind also, which also had some similarities. And I don't think I'll be able to make the film. So I took that India Today issue to my professors, and they said that's a wonderful story because it had not been reported in the American publications. But you have to interview, you know, Spielberg, Satyajit Ray, Arthur C. Clarke, and I said, you know, holy shit, how am I going to do this? I was in my 20s, I was a little kid, you know. But it's amazing, and somehow I was able to deliver the story, which I don't think I'll be able to do now. So I was telling Ravina about, in the 1980s, there was only one phone company in America, AT&T. They had a monopoly till the Supreme Court then broke it down because, you know, and you could call the AT&T operator, they are an international operator, and you could call them and you could say, can you connect him to an AT&T international operator in Sri Lanka? And they would connect you for free. Arthur C. Clarke was listed in the Colombo phone book. And before that, what had happened was I first tried to see how do I contact Arthur C. Clarke, and I discovered that all his books, you know, 2001 Space Odyssey, all the science fiction books, had been published by Random House. So I called Random House in New York and I said, I'd like to interview him. And they said, oh, you got to write a letter. So I typed the whole letter to Arthur C. Clarke, who am I? I'm a student from India studying in New York, and I would love to interview you, etc. Koi jawab nahi aaya, nobody wrote back to me or something like that. And lo and behold, he's listed in the phone book, and I managed to talk to Arthur C. Clarke. He actually came on the phone, and I used to have this, you know, it was a big tape recorder I had with this mic, which was like a suction device, and it would attach to the phone, and I would be holding it and making sure the conversation getting tape recorded. Managed to interview Arthur C. Clarke, and he said, I told Ray that don't take it lying down. The least you can do is, you know, you can't sue Spielberg. He's made substantial changes to the story, but at least write to him or call him and tell him, look, there are a lot of similarities between my script and your film. I also spoke to a woman by the name of Marie Seaton, who was one of the best biographers of Satyajit Ray. She wrote a book called The Portrait of a Director. In her book, which I read in the late 70s, early 80s, she had written a lot about the alien. She had also reproduced some of Ray's sketches. I managed to the AT&T operator, called London, and there were 5 Marie Seatons listed in London. First of all, I don't know how I guessed she's in London. England has other cities besides London. I only tried London. So there were 5 or 6 Marie Seatons listed, and you know, each phone call in those days, now it is very cheap to make international calls from the US. It was like $1 per minute or something like that, which was a lot of money in the early 80s for a student like me. So after 3 or 4 calls, I got this old lady to come on the phone. And I asked her, you know, Marie Seaton written the book, and she said yes, and she spoke with very heavy accent, and she spoke very slowly. So she told me some stuff, and then she said, but have you spoken to Shorty? Now I had gotten Satyajit Ray's address from the Indian consulate in New York. The Bishop Lefroy Road address in Calcutta. Again, I typed a letter to him saying, I'm a student, I'm doing this and all, I'm doing this research, article, can you please answer some of these questions? And no response had come. So when this old lady said, have you spoken to Shakti? And I said, no, but I've written a letter to him. I said, you have his phone number? Yes, I do. So I said, okay, can you give it to me? And she said, wait, and then she went and she was gone for like half a minute. And I'm just calculating how much this call is costing, you know. And then she comes back on the phone and she gave me the number and she said, mind you, call him between 6 and I don't know if any of you know about Satyajit Ray. Apparently between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, he would sit in his living room by his phone. That was the time anyone could call him and pick up the phone. So I called, you know, and but the point was that she said that about 5 times. She kept repeating like grandmothers do. Mind you, call him between 7. I remember now you saying 6. I called Satyajit. I dialed the number from a dorm room in New York City, and Satyajit Ray picked up the phone. I was a 24-25-year-old kid basically. And he had a very strong yes. I said, you know, I wrote the letter. He had gotten my letter. And he said, I'll write you, I'll respond to you, I'll you know, write back to you. I was getting pressured from my professors to finish this. I had to graduate from the school basically. So I got a lot of interesting quotes from Satyajit Ray also. I was not able to Spielberg. I tried through his lawyers and this, that, nothing happened. But my professors at Columbia, they jumped at the story. They thought it was a major story. And they even had some law school professor at Columbia University study the whole thing so that they could, you know, libel lawsuits against me in the school. My story broke out, lo and behold, like it was early March of 1983, like 2 weeks before the Oscar, and ET had about like 12 Oscar nominations, as did Gandhi. Of course, we all know that Gandhi swept the Oscars then. LA Times did 3 follow-up stories. This is a, I was a kid at the journalism school. LA Times did 3 follow-up stories, and one of the LA Times reporters even said, my editor is asking, why you written this story? You want Gandhi to win the Oscars? And I'm like, this is an idiot. Investment. I said, no, I wrote the story because I want to graduate from my journalism school. But it was a very exciting time for a young journalist, really.
And of course, Gandhi won, and
Gandhi won.
E.T. didn't, right? As a journalist writing on Indian cinema, Indian films, how has that changed? You also, has that opened up now much more in mainstream media in the US?
Yes, it has, although writing about films in any case is being cut down. I mean, newspapers in America have been writing a very long time. I mean, they've cut down pages, they've laid off journalists, they've reduced the trim size, so there's less news there. But I wrote for the longest time for Boston, Globe, and Philadelphia Inquirer. So I had become like a go-to person where every time Meera Nair had a film, or Deepa Mehta had a film, or Ismail Merchant had a film, any Indian filmmaker living in the West, Gurinder Chadha, like Deccan, etc., I'd be the one who would do the interviews for these. In fact, the first story I did for Philadelphia Inquirer, Om Puri had come to New York to promote East is East. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a fantastic film. And I wrote to the editors and they agreed to it. So there was a lot more interest. I think there is still quite a lot of interest. New York Times sometimes does stories. Anuj Chopra writes sometimes in New York Times, about Bollywood. So there is interest, of course, but there's less and less. And when the Padmavati thing became such a big political story, that was covered in the press and some of the radio stations in America. So if it's a very big news story like that, then definitely, or a film of like Namesake, for instance, gets released in America, then it gets covered in the press, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just having lived in New York, in a little bit of a contemporary of yours in New York, occasions for South Asian expression, whether it's the South Asian Journalists Association, which you've been a very important part of, and that one that almost like a midday type of publication, India Abroad, that we used to all subscribe to, was the only
I worked for them for years and years.
India news you used to get.
Freelance to them also for a very long time.
To now also, since 2010, you say, hosting the New York India Festival. So I think you've really tried to create a space for Indian cinema in New York as well, right? And so it's really, so if you don't know that about Aseem, that's really wonderful to know as well, and I've been a beneficiary of that as an audience. So really happy to have you here, Aseem. I'm going to stop and open up the floor for questions. Could someone just take care of that? Yeah.